Authority, developing Uganda together.
Kapo, you seem to be in a hurry. Where are you going to?
I'm gonna pay URA visit.
Why would anyone visit URA? Of all places?
To know more about the Kakasa business solutions, namely digital tracking solution, the voluntary disclosure program and electronic fiscal receipting, and invoicing solution, which have turned my business around. You know I need to be on top of my game to protect my empire. If you know, you know.
I too need to know what Kapo knows.
Kakasa, be sure you are in charge of your business. Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
In chess, the small one can become the big one. It's the same here. And here too. Watch every move. Record every number so you can plan better. No matter the size of your dream, tomorrow's success belongs to those who keep today's records clean. File your returns today.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Welcome to the Revenue Pulse, a program on URA TV designed to bring you regular updates of the revenue collections against the intended target. And today on set, I have Edward Kaiwa, business writer from New Vision, and yes, we have Ronald Mugobera. Yes, and he is from CS BAG, that is the civil society group. Yes. You are most welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for coming to speak to our taxpayers today. We're excited to bring you this program today because we're going to be talking about the cost of informality on economic development. If you've heard about the informal sector, then maybe you've heard of it in other terms. For example, the gray economy, the shadow economy, the underground economy. And when you hear all those terms, maybe the black economy, this is a lot of activity, production going on underground. In other words, it's unregistered. Taxes are not being paid. It doesn't appear anywhere on the formal registry. Especially now in terms of Uganda, as we are speaking on the URSP, it does not appear anywhere. So we're talking about street vendors, we're talking about all those businesses, we're talking about, it could be the rubbish pickers, we're talking about any business that you know of but that is unregistered. And today we want to discuss, Edward, why do we have such a high level of informality in Uganda? According to the statistics, about 94 of them that don't appear on the agricultural in the agricultural sector, are not employed in the agricultural sector, are in the informal sector. But also, according to the Global Entrepreneurial Monitor, at least 28% of adults own or co-own a business, and yet we don't see any of this appearing in the radar. Why is that? Why do we have such a high level of informality in our country?
Thank you very much, Noella. There are quite a number of reasons why businesses or entrepreneurs choose to be informal. But high on the agenda, I think it is a lack of communication or proper communication. The communication is not open between government and the private sector, because this informal sector, you could categorize it as part of the private sector because it is not public sector.
Yes.
You find that many of them have gaps in information. They do not quite appreciate why they have to pay taxes. They do not also quite appreciate what taxes do. But also looking on other things. For instance, in the past, there has been a push and pull kind of relationship between the tax collectors and quite a number of businesses. This cast the tax collector in a bad way, where people now think and believe that if they are not pushed, then they should not do what? Pay the taxes. When the tax collector softens the stand, they think the tax collector has weakened. So they have won, and it's time to, like the Uganda say, kulisa buti, So there are quite a number of reasons why. The other reason why people decide to go informal is simply because they think their businesses are too small, so they have nothing literally to contribute to the tax bracket. You mentioned people like vendors, for instance. A vendor would literally look at the kind of capital they have, and they're looking at, if I pay taxes on this, where do I stand? Where do I leave my capital?
Where do I benefit?
Yes, what remains? So the thinking that the businesses are quite small is also one of the things that fuels quite a lot of informality down in the micro small, especially the micro small and medium sized enterprises. The other one is pure greed.
Okay.
People wanting to have their cake, to eat their cake and still have it. It's pure greed. And this is a habit that is so prevalent in many Ugandans, because you find even the rich, in certain ways they want to dodge. In certain ways, if they can have their way, they will have it. It's purely greed. So for me, I see these as some of the prime reasons why we have
a large informal sector.
But maybe to clarify on the point I made about government and then the public, when people hear a lot of corruption, someone pays taxes and then they hear there is someone in a certain office who has run away with $1 billion or, huge amounts of money. People really, they feel bad because this is their sweat, it's their money. And if they are collecting their money for someone to enrich themselves in one go, and they are struggling for years to pay these taxes, they wonder why should they pay taxes anymore.
Yes.
And it doesn't make matters easier when the tax collector is a government agency, and it's government from which this money is being stolen. So they think when they pay their money to URA, immediately their money is stolen right from URA and all that. So when URA approaches them to pay tax, they really want to dodge. Sometimes they really even want to fight. There are some who want to fight because they have anger. Why are you forcing them to pay money and someone else is just going to, collect it and go? And the legal system has not really helped us that much. You find that the people who steal very small amounts of money, they're prosecuted and the cases are concluded. But cases that involve billions stay for years. They're not concluded. And this angers quite a lot of people, and I think it's why some of them choose not to actually contribute to the formal. Thank you so much, Edward. You find that most of these businesses are actually community-based, and therefore they are supported by the immediate communities around them. I mean, look at our markets where our people buy their daily food, matoke, cassava, potatoes, the markets, Chireka market, or you'll find so many people not paying their taxes. But because they have the support from their community and they're able to, there's demand and supply, they're able to feed that immediate demand that is around them. They'll close their eye to exploitation or,
being chased away, because some of the people on the streets are chased away eventually. So they would subject themselves to that, knowing that any day, any time, they're able to just put their merchandise and people buy. Why do they go with that? Why do they think it's advantageous? Why would they not want to have their businesses registered? Let me go to Ronald. Yes. What do you have to say about the informal economy?
Well, thank you very much, Noela. Well, the discussion around the informal economy is multifaceted, and it manifests in different sectors. I want to appreciate your highlighting of agriculture, but it is far beyond that. It is far beyond that. Actually, the informality is evenly distributed in all sectors of the economy. And surprisingly, you find that I one time had a discussion with a colleague of mine who has a formal business, and he told me, Ronald, it pays off when you are both in the formal and the informal.
How can you be?
That it pays off.
Yes.
Yes. You have your formal business, but again you go on and open up one.
That is informal.
That is informal.
Okay.
And the discussion was that the tax that you pay through the formal business is offset by the gains you make
in the informal. Interesting.
So that's just one of them who has tried to be a little rational to government.
Yes.
But there's one who has chosen to be 100% informal. And I think the discussion around informality should go beyond what Edward was telling us about the size of the business. In most cases, people, I think, have used the two words interchangeably, that the people micro, small, and medium enterprises are supposed to be formal.
Okay.
I think that is where we need more sensitization
and clarity. What is formal and what is informal?
So, if I got your question well, the implications of the informal sector. Also,
yes, sir.
Like the informal sector, as you said it before, it is undocumented. Also,
yes.
So a lot of activity goes on in the informal sector without trace. Right now, I want to use an example of COVID-19. COVID-19 has hit the economy, and most economies are on their knees because of the measure that after the lifting of the different lockdown measures, we see that the economy is peaking. But remember, there was what we call the fiscal stimulus packages that are being put by government. So you realize that those who are in the informal sector are likely to have missed out. Not so. So now that one hurts the informal sector players.
That's true.
But remember, this COVID-19 pandemic, for how long has it come? It is a once in a while.
At some point.
Yes. At some point, these people have coping mechanisms.
That's true.
On which they can do what? Keep on pushing. Because it's doing an informal business, it's going to an informal money lender.
Okay.
So
yes.
the informality is sustaining itself. So he's running a small kiosk. He has missed out on the government package.
Imagine. Yes.
Then he goes to an informal money lender and sustains himself. So along the way, someone sees that I don't need government.
Okay.
Then if I missed out on their package, yes, I've gone to an informal money lender who is not giving me hard time. I'm getting this money like real time when I need it.
Yes.
That's on the side of the business of the business players in the informal sector. Now, definitely on the side of government, we lose out a lot because we all understand the gross domestic product of the country. When it is being computed, the informal sector is being left out. Also.
That's true. That's
so
true.
You may find that what is being portrayed, being captured as the figures for gross domestic product of the country is an underestimation. Because much of the business, if you're talking about, as you said, over 50% of the economy being within the informal sector, it is really unregulated. Not so. What is happening? What is the government missing out? Now, the direct effect of informality on government comes when it's felt through revenue generation.
Okay.
Yes, because a lot of activity is going on uncaptured. People are doing a lot of business.
Underground.
And this is not captured in the tax radar of government. So even if the government says we are going to come up with innovations, the digital stamps, the e-phrase, everything, they are going to capture just a small tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
You are going to miss out on it on the majority that have been locked up in the informal sector. Looking at this, let's not look at it partially. We need to look at it like in a holistic perspective. The limited contribution of the informal sector or the non-contribution of the informal sector to the tax revenue of the country definitely leads to a fiscal deficit and a budget deficit that now government is going to fail. It will not have enough money to put in the social sectors.
Could we then say that government is the one failing its people? Because when we look at those who are in the informal sector,
Yes.
according to the statistics, it's mostly women that make up those numbers, and mostly people that haven't completed the secondary cycle of education.
Yes.
Let me say perhaps up to senior 6. And so the URA tax register currently has, I think, at least 1.8 million taxpayers. URSB has at least 800,000 taxpayers. I mean 800,000 people that have, or companies that are registered, businesses that are registered. But out of those numbers, we don't have all of them consistently paying taxes. And even those, when I talk about 800,000 under URSB, Uganda Registration Services Bureau, registration does not mean that all of them are actually in operation and making money. So when we look at that against a total population of about 45 million Ugandans, where is the gap, Edward? Where is the gap? Is it the government that is failing its people with education and any of that? Or is it the people that are not seeing the opportunities? For our people that have gone on CNN or BBC and spoken about our tourism, the Pearl of Africa, our resources, the potential that this country carries, and the fact that our government entities or bodies are aligned. You'll find a government body for anything in this country. So where is the gap? What is not going right?
That is a very interesting question.
And we'll come back to you with the same question.
Who is not doing things right? Is it the government or is it the people who are not doing things right? I think it's both.
Okay.
Each one has a part they're not doing right. Because primarily the government has to inject a lot of money in taxpayer education. It's quite important. And although there is some form of taxpayer education that is going on, it is not broad enough to sink into the brain of every single potential taxpayer in the country. We are all taxpayers because all of us pay taxes indirectly, but then there are those taxes that we have to pay directly, like VAT and such taxes. And we are not paying. So I'm talking about the potential taxpayers in that category. Government has to be more deliberate through its various sources, such as yourself, the URA, and quite a number of other mediums, to deliberately sensitize people about paying tax taxpayer education is very important in overcoming this challenge. But also on the side of the people, people are just being deliberately stubborn. Many of them deliberately stubborn. They are just refusing to pay taxes because of the, like he said, that fundamental gain. You know, just imagine the one who is paying tax and then is offsetting with the, yes, informally gained undeclared revenue. Now just imagine one who is not declaring anything at all. They are bagging something huge, and they don't want to part with that. They do not want to leave something for state building. The onus falls on both sides, but especially for government, because the people may have an excuse. Even when I know that I'm supposed to pay taxes, I may have quite a number of claims. For instance, the ease of paying tax. How easy is it for me to really pay tax? The information, do I have this tax information at the fingertips of my hands? Those kinds of things, I think it's government that has to come in and close that gap. For as long as government has closed the gap on the part of information, informing the citizens about tax, then government can rightly come in with enforcement, because then the citizens cannot feign ignorance. They know the part they're supposed to play. They have been informed, and they are still being informed, even as government comes in to enforce. So that business of I didn't know, forgive me, it just doesn't apply, because you know. Every other corner has information regarding to tax compliance, tax payment, the advantages that we derive from it all. And maybe I would also think that government should start deliberately answering the citizens' questions. When they are asking, what do our taxes do? Where do our taxes go?
Where do they go?
It is not something that should be taken quite so lightly, where government just doesn't answer these questions. Accountability and transparency are so important. Every year, government collects money from people in form of taxes. And remember, we have only 1.8 million people collecting all this money. Okay? Where you were quoting statistics from URA and URSB, but there are statistics also from UBUS and that's quite true. A number of other places that show, for instance, that we have about 18 million qualified to pay taxes. Yes. But out of those now, you see, we have only 1.8 million. That means that approximately 20 or thereabouts % are the only ones who are paying tax. Now, 70-something to 80% of Uganda's population are not paying tax. So the small group which is paying tax really wants to know where the money they are paying is going. What is this money doing? It's a fundamental question. It's an honest question they are asking. So government should answer in honesty. Where is the money going? If we collected, for instance, it's supposed to be 22 point something trillion this year. If we collect 22 trillion from our people, then we should at least give accountability of which sectors it was pushed into and what we were able to benefit from it, so that these people can at least, have the desire to pay and to comply again next financial year. But as long as there are areas of darkness, even the people who are paying, by the way, tax is a form of sacrifice, because no one wants to pay tax. From the times of Jesus, nobody has ever wanted to pay tax.
Yes.
So those who are paying the tax are sacrificing, and every sacrifice is painful, especially if you're paying, you're sacrificing, but a large section of your own people, of your own brethren, like here in Uganda, are not making the same sacrifice. You really want to know, what did my money do? And if you don't have those questions answered, next financial year, you find it hard to comply in the same way. So even if we have things like IFRIS and all that, people will keep trying to find ways of going into the dark areas, into informality. Because like he said, you pay the taxes, but you recover what you've paid by not declaring another chunk of revenue you've earned, because you do not have trust in
It's
what the
true.
government is using this
Using
money
it
for.
Thank you for that submission, Edward. We traveled to Mbarara to reward a taxpayer, very compliant taxpayer, and that was at the top of his heart was, that complaint. Where is the accountability? What about all these other people that are not paying taxes? Why should the tax burden be on a few? Why can't URA ensure that the tax base is expanded so that everyone can pay their fair share of tax? Ronald, where is the gap? Because one of the things we see, at least within the last year, is that the responsible government entities, we can talk about NIRA, URSB, URA, have tried to integrate their systems. What they're doing, isn't it enough? Because I feel the integration was a big step. NIRA brings their data, URSB brings their data, URA brings their data, and so isn't that enough? They have all the details. Ronald, they know what village you come from, your mother, your father, and then, once you register your business with URSB, URA is able to see that data. So government could be doing everything that it can, and maybe the people also. So where is the gap?
I think I want to begin from where my colleague ended. Okay, one of the things they talked about awareness. How many people are aware that URSB NIRA have integrated systems? It could be a small percentage. Yes, we have. We need to begin by looking at the technology that has come on board. Smartphones. Most of us have smartphones. Penetration, usage of those smartphones. Using a smartphone is a function of internet. And I am at where how much we are dealing with the internet. So, I want to come back to what you're talking about. You left it at a time when you asked me that is government doing enough? I think we can't do it without sensitizing the population. Yes, we should go beyond the casual talk of telling them the relevance of paying taxes. I think that one they know. But there is a certain book I was reading, and the Minister of Capital, and this gentleman writes and says that in most developing countries, underdeveloped countries including, most people do business in the informal sector thinking that it pays them more than when they are registered. You gave an example of street vendors. You see, every time those street vendors run when KCC is looking for them to either to pay tax or do whatever the enforcement they are doing. They are not registered. But you know the cost they go through. It is more costly to be informal than being formal. But now it takes a lot of time and energy for you to convince that person in the informal sector. Because first of all, in the informal sector, so if you are operating informally, maybe you need to bribe an enforcer of the law.
That's true.
You have to run away every time the unbribable person comes after you.
That's true.
That's a cost. You are operating under anxiety. You don't know whether you'll complete the day when you haven't been caught. So all that is a cost, but which is hard to tell a person. So if we could go ahead and understand, maybe undertake a research on the cost of being informal, and we involve some of these people in the informal sector to be part of the to be part of the informers of this research, disseminate these results in different languages, in different sub-regions. It will be very important. But again, we talked about the 1.8 million taxpayers. If we really went into these 1.8 1.8 million taxpayers. How much is each one contributing? There are those that could be redundant. And I'm very sure that this figure was, you have not adjusted it for COVID-19. There are people whose businesses have collapsed and may take long to return. So for them to be actively paying the tax, it may take some lag of time. So the question would be, the people in the informal sector to become formal. Yes, coming up with integrated systems is very okay. But what is the bloodline or blood life of people using that system? It's the internet. And if the cost of internet is high, if I put my limited MBs on my phone, instead of using those which after 5 minutes I'm going to get a message from MTN telling me 90% of your bundle has been utilized, looking for the integrated system, why don't I put that money and immediately look for a customer and I sell off my good? That, as simple as that. I only do transaction with my internet. So now we need to look at that also, that as government does some of these things, some of the policies that it does, that it comes up with, are counterproductive. Yes, people going on that system that you're talking about need internet, but the cost of internet is high.
It's too high.
Then we are discussing this beyond. Uganda is an open economy, and you know about border porosity. The borders are porous, not so. So instead of someone coming through Malaba, formally, they are going to use the porous borders. And also that, you know how well it affects the tax, the revenue generation potential. I want to give an example. Right now, when you go to the supermarkets, there are so many drinks that are locally made in Uganda. Some of them don't have stamps. Okay, majority of them don't have stamps. But those drinks are competing favorably well with the formal beverage companies. Not so. They're competing well. First of all, they are cheap since they don't pay tax. Cheap compared to the formalized ones. Now, they will underprice, of course, definitely. They are operating. A tax, by the way, on the business side, is a cost of production.
That's true.
That's so if someone offsets it through evading, avoiding, it pays to them. So I think we also need to understand the potential. If we were to tax those companies that are dealing in these, say, beverages locally, how much would we generate? And they are not formal. And we could also say, okay, fine, we have done a study. It has shown us this. And we have said that, okay, beyond this amount, it is optimal. Okay, beyond that amount, you're supposed to go formal. And then put in place sanctions and put in place incentives. There are people who need to be pushed, by the way. They could be willing taxpayers, but they could need to be pushed. The last time I applied for a tin. It took me a lot of time, just myself. Remember, I am not an illiterate. Okay, but it took me time.
A lot of time.
To get a tin, a tax identification number. Now imagine a person who has never gone to school. And you know what chaps have done? Just downtown, anywhere. Now they are put opening a tin, 1,000. And they even tell you instant.
Instant, yes.
Express. Express. Yes. So you people, if you do not address some of these challenges, there's someone benefiting down there, but at your cost. Because someone will calculate, how much is 20,000 really? And the 20,000 you look at, it may be pocket change to one person. But when you try to make it tangible to what that 20,000 can do for someone who is a low-income earner, that is yaka for 2 months. No, so, and you're telling them to pay to get a tin, and subject them to tax, more pain. So, my idea is, how easy is it for someone to get some of these services? That I open a tin, and I know that when I open a tin, it will not be very easy that when I open, these people will begin looking for me. Where's your money? It's until that I've started doing gainful economic activity that I get to do what? To be looked at as a potential taxpayer.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ronald. We are going for a break. And yes, when we come back, we are getting into the practicality, because as you said, some people think it's difficult to register their business or to get a TIN number, and we'll just break that down for the taxpayers so that they know this is something possible, something you can even get within 3 hours, whether it's a TIN number or your business registered. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
The Taxpayers Appreciation Season is here. We recognize, celebrate, and award Uganda's top taxpayers. Be part of the online Bombaya Business Summits and stand the chance to win smartphones, gift sets, hampers, and loads more. Visit our social media pages to find out more.
We appreciate you for paying your taxes. We're proud to be Ugandan. We celebrate you. Oh, we celebrate you. Taxpayers of Uganda. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Uganda together.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together.
The third edition of the Bombay Business Summit is here, starting at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. every Friday from the 15th of October to the 12th of November. Join us via Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube as we discuss topics like surviving and thriving through the pandemic, investing in real estate, trade and investment opportunities in Uganda, alternative dispute resolution, business formalization, and inclusive resource mobilization for Uganda's economic independence. Don't miss out.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together.
Our humble beginnings take place in September 1991 with an amalgamation of 3 different departments in the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Back then, the economy was just getting back onto its feet. Tax collection stood at 6.83% of the GDP, amounting to 180 billion Uganda shillings in the financial year 1991-1992. The URA senior management team comprised of over 60% expatriate staff, and revenue collection depended majorly on cash-based systems. Over the years, we have developed more effective and automated means of revenue administrations, with 95% of URA's processes automated to mitigate corruption and position URA as a business enabler. Revenue collection has grown to 13% of GDP, amounting to 19.26 trillion Uganda shillings collected in the just concluded financial year 2020-2021. At 30 years old today, URA boasts of being an effective semi-autonomous body, providing revenue administration services, spanning the entire country and driving Uganda towards economic independence. We have a vision of mobilizing enough revenue to fund the national budget by 100%. We are 30 years stronger.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together.
Kapo, you seem to be in a hurry. Where are you going to?
I'm gonna pay URA a visit.
Why would anyone visit URA? Of all places?
To know more about the Kakasa business solutions, namely digital tracking solution, the voluntary disclosure program and electronic fiscal receipting, and invoicing solution, which have turned my business around. You know I need to be on top of my game to protect my empire. If you know, you know.
I too need to know what Kapo knows.
Kakasa, be sure you are in charge of your business. Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Welcome back to the Revenue Pulse. And on set is your girl, yes, Noella Anaso from PCA, Public and Corporate Affairs, URA. And I'm joined by Edward Kaiwa, business writer, New Vision, and Ronald Mugovera, yes, from CS BAG. And we are discussing the costs of informality on economic development. And right from where we took a break, we're saying that ignorance is not bliss, and there are so many taxpayers, there are so many Ugandans that have suffered at the cost of ignorance because they think bringing their businesses into the formal sector is expensive, that it costs much, but actually not bringing it to the formal sector costs much more. Edward, break it down for our taxpayers because some of them have been through experiences where it has cost them much more. One thing is for sure, people whose businesses are not part of the formal economy, well, they cannot access credit, because your business is not registered. You cannot access certain contracts, especially from the government, or even from just other businesses, even within PSFU, the Private Sector Foundation, because you're not part of you're not in the radar. You cannot access certain land for your business because you don't have a TIN number. If you want to put it within the Kampala City Council, you cannot get a trading license, even from the local government, if your business is not registered, if it does not appear on the radar. So eventually the cost to our dear fellow countrymen is higher. And it's not just for those that we think did not complete their education cycle. It's even for those that are educated but have no knowledge, do not seek it out, neither have they found it. So that the responsibility is both ways. The government hasn't gotten this education far enough to these particular people, or they haven't sought it out. Edward, what has this cost some of our taxpayers, especially those within the Kampala City Council? We know that there are so many traders. Last year, actually it was early this year, we had a tax compliance day, and we went down to Chikubo, Edward. And I'm telling you, we went shop by shop, arcade by arcade, and we walked along that street, the Chikubo itself, and there were so many people making a lot of money. Others who maybe would not pay the other taxes, but would pay presumptive tax. That falls in the bracket of those whose businesses do not make more than 100 million shillings, okay? But they could presume, they could say, okay, out of the profit that I make, this is something that I can be able to pay. But they didn't have the information. They didn't even know what presumptive tax is, or withholding tax, or the percentage they're supposed to pay. But eventually, the fact that some of them are along that strip, you find that they are evicted. The cost to them is higher than them not formalizing. What are your experiences with those in the informal sector?
Well, I think this thing, if I may put it in a rational way, informality, the cost of informality depends on who is actually describing it or defining it. Because to a man who is downtown in Chikubo, like you said, you talking about informality being costly, they don't see it that way. They see that informality benefits them because they are able to avoid certain expenses, certain costs in the day-to-day running of their businesses. These people are not so ambitious. And in any case, when the business grows, they diversify the investment into some other area. Most of them are into land, real estate. Okay, so when the business reaches a certain threshold, a certain amount of capital, they diversify and go and buy land and stuff like that. So they're not looking at the business growing so much, because they already know, according to them, that if the business grows to this size, then there is no way you can avoid the tax man. So the best way to do it is to go into something else and maintain this as lean as possible out of the radar of the taxman. So to them, this thing is beneficial. But again, it has a cost to the entire economy, because you know that there cannot be any kind of growth if people are not paying taxes, because governments survive on revenue. It is from the revenue collected that a government is able to finance its activities in a financial year. If government does not have enough money, then we have budget deficits, we have all kinds of deficits, and that pushes the government to go and borrow. It pushes the government at the mercy of development partners who give grants and donations, and then we are forced to get embarrassed. You get it?
Yes.
And then you have other countries growing very fast, and the rate of growth for our country will be limited because we are not getting the much needed revenue. We will not have efficient service provision. For instance, making roads. We cannot have all roads done to a level that is desirable to stimulate the economy, the growth and development of the economy, because government does not have money to make all roads. Hospitals will lack medicine, all right? Certain places will not have clean water. Sanitation issues will arise. Then we'll have disease outbreaks, all right? And disease outbreaks require people to go to hospital and get these services offered to them. But there are no medicine in hospitals. The health workers are not paid well. So maybe they are on strike, they are not working. Or they are just appearing and doing nothing because it's a form of protest. You come to work and you do nothing, all right? They can't say you're not working, but literally you're not working.
You're not working, yes.
Okay?
You're a ghost.
So we see a certain cycle within our country that is undesirable. But that is simply because a certain section of citizens are not really paying their taxes. Okay? We may say that, informality, reflects about 49% in our GDP, all right? That's informality. But you see, when now you look at the tax book, the contribution is zero.
Yes,
so you can see 49 the other side and zero this side. That's a huge gap.
That's a huge
So
gap.
this is a huge potential for government to, bring on board and then stop the begging and stop all that kind of stuff. But then how then do we do it? You said, and if I can quote you, you said government has put in place all kinds of systems. We've come up with, did you say applications or something like that?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
We are taking everything online. We are,
improving our processes.
Processes and the processes are speaking one to another.
They're integrating.
Yes, we're integrating. But you see, the point is, no matter how much you integrate the systems, the systems remain systems, and it is people who speak in those systems.
That's true.
So as long as these people, when they are ignorant, there is no way the system can be effective, because those who are supposed to work with the system don't know. That is one. Two, there is something that I don't know how to state it properly, but I think it is not enough love for the country. People really don't love their country that much. I may not go into the reasons right now, but the actions speak to the same. People don't trust their leaders. People don't even trust their own country. So it is easier for someone to go to do business in Kenya, and they are very compliant. And the moment they step on Ugandan soil, they want to be very uncompliant.
Oh, yes.
You get the point? So the thing is, until the love for country is stimulated in people's minds and hearts, until they know that without them, there is no Uganda, and without them, there is no developed Uganda, until they know that we shall not have foreigners developing our country for us, that it is us who have to develop this country for us, these things are really not going to happen. The systems will remain. But at the end of the day, we shall still be looking at deficits. Because you see, where now you've integrated systems and all that and processes, you still have people outside there, who are also as qualified as those who made these processes and systems, and they will manipulate them. And at the end of the day, you'll still have leakages. Even those who are manning these very systems, we have a lot of corruption going on. So they are not leak-proof in themselves. But if people love their country, That is much, much greater. It is the biggest disincentive to corruption. Okay? It is the biggest disincentive to corruption. If you love your country enough, you will not give a bribe to dodge tax. Knowing very well that what you give, what you pay into the national purse is going to do a road somewhere, is going to buy medicine somewhere. Because you never know. It could be your child, it could be an emergency, it could be yourself. All right? On the dying bed, and there's no medicine in the hospital.
And there's no medicine.
All
That's
right?
true. That's true.
But if you contribute that little that you have, then the medicine will be there in the hospitals. All right? So I still go back to the same thing. We have to sensitize people. And we take it for granted that because we have adverts on TV, because we have adverts on radio, and we have programs going on, that is enough. But I'm telling you, I've interfaced with traders who know nothing about what is going on, who are manipulated. Traders down there in Chikubu, they are manipulated by the so-called agents.
That's true.
All right? And they are fed with all kinds of information. It's not that they don't want to pay tax, but they're even threatened. All right? Someone runs and tells them, these URA guys are coming, please close your shops or hide, blah, 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 falsify this information in such and such a way, because should those people land on the truth, you guys are finished. That is enough. It's enough for all those guys. Those arcades, I don't know how many they are. There are about 200 arcades in town. And that is almost more than 20,000 people working in those arcades. Now, just imagine if those 20,000 people in those arcades, what about people in Mbarara, in Iganga, in Kotido, you know? When will this information reach them? Okay? This information runs on radios, but sometimes it's time for jam. People are rushing to go back home.
That's
all right?
true, yes.
They don't really listen.
They're
Even when they listen, their mind
radios
is already
and TVs.
at home. They are worried about how the children are and whether the food is enough and stuff like that. All right? During the day, they are worried about this contract, this customer, this. So their mind is running all about. So until you reach them physically, or until you have literature that they can have and then go through later, all right, at their own time, at their own pace, I think very little will work. If you can organize these people in segments, say, for instance, like the arcade people in town, and you have, their leaders, and you have their leaders, sensitized about all this stuff, then their leaders sensitize those who they lead, then to me, it creates more value than saying that you will approach them when already they see you in bad light. But all that said, in the face of time, I think it goes back to sensitization. It does not matter what innovation you come up with. If the people you are innovating it for are ignorant, they will be frustrated, you'll be frustrated, the innovation will be frustrated, and at the end of the day, everybody will be frustrated.
Everybody will be frustrated. Your thoughts, Ronald? You see, I like what you've said. People think the processes are tedious, and you think at some point it shouldn't just be about what government is doing, but patriotism on the side of the taxpayers to find out for themselves how they can access a tin. Because until that, for example, it is not until, some taxpayers feel like it's when they register for taxes that they begin to pay taxes. When they register their businesses and acquire a tin, then they start to pay taxes. And it's not so. And it's not when you've made a sale that you are taxed. No. It's until you're able to take out your expenses, until you're able to take out and you have a profit. And it's from the profit that a taxpayer will patriotically put aside 30% as their taxes. And it's incumbent upon the taxpayer to ensure that they file their returns. And they think it's, because of a lack of education, someone might think it's time-taking or it's difficult to do. But filing your returns simply means to declare that this is how much I put into the business, this is what my expenses were, this is what my profit, has been, And then from the net profit, if there has been no profit, the taxpayer will file what is called a nil return. That means I didn't make anything, I cannot pay anything this month. But if the taxpayer has made a profit, from their net profit, then 30% of it is what will be taxed. So some of the taxpayers feel maybe everything will be taken away, or half of it will be taken away. But for example, if somebody is making at least between 30 to 50 million shillings, at least 100,000 shillings of it will be what they'll put into the government coffers. And really, if you're making that in a year, 100,000 shillings may not be a lot. So if everyone pays the little that they can, then no one has to pay more than they should. No one has to pay more. And the processes also in URSB and URA, at least URA has gotten rid of the long Excel sheets. I don't know if you've ever filled that sheet when you're filing for, when you're applying for a teen, for somebody or for yourself, Edward. Those long Excel sheets, people used to fear them a lot. URA has gotten rid of them. I know that also in URSB, someone would come with 30 pages of their memorandum or articles of association or memorandum, and there'll just be 30. Now just 2 pages, and just like URA, I know that URSB at least has 44 centers all over the country. URA, if you are not found at least at the border towns for customs and domestic taxes, may not be in every district, but now we have e-services, and the taxpayers can access those services online, whether it's registration whether they're registering and trying to acquire TIN, or whether they're trying to ask a question. There is now, we have a contact center. There is a contact center that is, that runs for 24 hours. So the taxpayers can access that information. You just call the service center and you'll be attended to. There's now a WhatsApp number through which the taxpayers can access information on anything that they want to access. There's a translators club, Edward. There's a translators club right now, and so the tax education material is being put in different languages. Just 2 weeks ago, the Braille system of communication was launched, is now being used by URA. And so we had some of our people from UNAB, Uganda National Association of the Blind. They were around for that launch, and they were able to use the Braille to read our tax education. So it's amazing what URA and at least URSB are trying to do to close those particular gaps. And now for the taxpayers, as Edward, you've submitted, the place of patriotism. Ronald, what do you think about patriotism? Do you think our people are patriotic? Do you think patriotism is an incentive? Do you think it is a driver that would cause people to want to actually register their businesses or join the formal sector? Love for the country. Is our country lovable? Yes.
Question.
Difficult.
Whether people are patriotic. You people first of all ask whether I am patriotic.
Are you patriotic, Ronald?
Yes, I am. But now, the issue of patriotism, like Edward put it, I think we need to first of all understand the quality of governance in the country. And the issue of accountability is very important in this. That a taxpayer, a citizen, may not see reason as to why he should pay tax when transporting his goods from a particular village to where he meets the customer. He has to make how many stopovers to push the truck because the roads are not motorable.
Yes, that's true.
Also, so it means that we should go beyond just saying be patriotic, but what is there to love about your country?
Yes.
Yes.
I hear you.
What is it? Okay, we have marketed this country in terms of showing tourists. Uganda is the pearl of Africa.
Yes.
That we have done. But a citizen in Uganda does not need to be told that Uganda is your country.
Love your country, yes.
It should be in practice that a citizen will wake up, walk on a good road. A citizen will wake up, find public facilities functional. Okay? Actually, there is one time I was a book by the World Bank. They say that as people's incomes go up, their ability or affinity to use public resources diminishes.
Interesting. Yes, that's
You get
true.
me? Now, what is the public facility? They are government facilities. So these are country facilities. Also. But as my income increases, I see that taking my child to a UPE school, really, I'm wasting time. Let me take them to what?
Yes, a private school.
A private school. Remember, if I have a business and I pay tax, it contributes to that UPE school. Not so. Because it's a public institute. If I go to a public health facility, say Health Center 3, and I don't find their medicine really, why would I continue paying tax? Because now I have an income. Instead of paying that tax, I'll take the child direct to a private health facility where I presume quality is better. So now government should work on such things. Like we're talking of people swindling money through corruption. Now you hear that billions have been wasted through corruption. Really, you ask yourself, I pay more, they steal more, while I continue suffering. So there should be a gap. I mean, there should be something to fill that gap of tax revenue collected should match the service delivered. I want to appreciate government. When you see, they will tell you, we have constructed, you can drive from that Nimule, that border point between Uganda and South Sudan, to the one between Uganda and Tanzania on a tarmac road. How many citizens stay there? You know what is happening on those feeder roads?
On the yes.
People are suffering.
I hear you.
So the quality of service delivery is beyond what we see that government has done. And now, let's come back again on the topic of patriotism. I think you don't need to tell Ugandans to love their country. Do something that will make them love their country. If the tax they are paying is that amounting into improved service delivery, people will pay the tax. But we have talked too much about making people know about the system, the integrated system and others. Knowing about something is one step, but is necessary but not sufficient. When we are discussing informality, we are looking at the business sector, and there are very many costs of production. Also, electricity itself is high, the cost of power is high, the different taxes are also high, they are not well streamlined. Like now you go to somebody, you ask, like you were saying, someone doesn't know what to pay as presumptive tax because there's no clarity.
They've never heard about it.
So that's already a knowledge gap. Now, I think we must have in place citizens an enabling environment beyond us talking of the 1.8 million registered taxpayers. How is the environment? That, okay, fine, the cost of power has gone low. Now it means that I have a leverage that I have saved on power that I can put into tax. Not so. But here you're pressing me, the tax is high, power is high, the roads are not very good, I have to pay too much, maybe I have to pay in terms of transport, fuel is expensive, so I have to pay all those costs. And then I come back and also pay tax. So if I find any gap, don't put it on me. If I find any gap of avoiding this tax, or of even evading it, and I have not seen, I'll utilize it. So the question is, how do we make the environment favorable? That, okay, someone is going to find electricity, the cost of power is low. We are in a meeting organized by Minister of Finance, the local government consultative meetings. And you know what a mayor of some city said? One of the cities said, I am very sure that even at the current rate of electricity, we're talking actually to the district commercial officer, the current rate of electricity, if umeme uses the same rate, it is also stealing its own power.
Interesting.
Yeah? That umeme also can't afford its own power.
Its own power.
It has to also steal it. That shows that it is very extremely high. So what would we do? That we subsidize other costs of production. Let the power the cost of power come down. Let the cost of transportation come down. Now people will have leverage. They will leverage some funds that they can say, okay, I have saved on power. Let me pay tax on that. So it's not a discussion that we should focus only on the tax side, but we should address the whole macro economy of the country.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, before Edward and Ronald come with their parting shots, I love Ronald's submission. Edward, the debt to GDP ratio is high. The tax to GDP ratio is among the lowest just within East Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. That is such an indicator. And when you say 49%, makes of our informal sector, that means there is high consumption and production going on in our country, and yet that's a lot of money that the government is not collecting. And yet at the same time, the government is borrowing so much more to be able to sustain a country that is able to be self-sustaining. We are able to be economically independent. We're able to get there. And so from our submissions today, as government works to do its part, we have to have an active citizenry that is ready to hold our people accountable. The ministries, departments, and agencies are given lots of funds every financial year to meet certain targets, to be able to provide certain services. But if the public does not demand for these services, does not cause them to account, it's amazing how in the European countries, the civil servants are called to account for certain funds. Jail time is not a matter of, it's not something you will avoid if you misuse certain funds, because the taxpayers will hold you accountable. We know that at least in Denmark, in some of those countries, even university education is free because they're able to meet their targets, their revenue targets. Our target this financial year as Uganda is 22.4 trillion shillings. And still that is way below what we should be collecting if we're able to close the gap on the informal sector. So our rally call this afternoon to all our dear fellow countrymen: if you have a business, it's going to cost you much more to not formalize that business, because there are contracts you cannot access, there is credit you cannot access, there is land for your business you cannot access. If you wanted to expand and export out of the country, you can't do that unless you have formalized your business. If you want to attract certain contracts, even from among fellow countrymen, you need to formalize. And now much more, even with solutions like IFRIS and DTS, you must formalize, because one person that has their receipts and their invoices, before they trade with you, they're going to need you to have formalized and to be having that monetary transaction through IFRIS, through that wonderful solution that URA came up, that the government has come up with. So our parting shots. Edward.
My parting shots will not be different from what I've said from the beginning of this program. I think government needs to do a lot more sensitization. We need to pump more money into sensitization. I know there is already a program going on with URA. I think it needs more funding to reach more places and more people, to make the people understand. I would agree with my brother here that you do not need to make people to love their country, But there reaches a time where you have to start from somewhere to show them the beauty about their country.
That's
so
true.
that they can appreciate it, and then you start from there. Because then you see that as much as you need to do the services and they just see this and then they love the country, you also need the money to actually deliver these same services. So you need to start from somewhere in a good way, telling them, guys, this is what we have, this is who we are. Can we wake up? Can we wake up? But also government needs to be accountable. We need to come up with more punitive ways of dealing with the corrupt, because I think the punishments for corruption are laughable. That's why people, that's why people get corrupt and they don't even worry about getting caught.
That's true.
Okay, and even those who get caught just laugh it off. You get it. We also need to kill the culture within our people of of praising people who are corrupt.
That's true.
Because that one alone,
not only praising them but also rewarding them.
That keeps corruption around much longer than it is actually needed. So if we can deal with those, sensitize people, deal with corruption in a more aggressive and brutal way, but also government giving accountability, because I think that one is big. A few years ago, this thing had started. I used to see on a certain platform where government officials would give accountability for what they did with the money they received in a certain year. It was basically the permanent secretaries. But that culture has died off. And I think it was a good way of letting people appreciate that the money they collected through taxes in a year did something good for them. Because then they are able to know that, although we didn't get a road here, but at least we did this, the money is small. We must appreciate that Uganda is a small economy right now, and we need quite more than we can collect to survive as a state, to defend our sovereignty. So the simple thing is, once we give accountability of the little resources we have collected, and people appreciate that, you see, my road was not done, but a certain hospital somewhere was built, there was an ambulance that was bought and stuff like that. If we learn that culture of transparency and accountability, but also empowering the people to account for accountability from their leaders, then I think we shall be headed in a right direction, because the people demand for this accountability, all right? The people demand for this accountability, and the leaders cannot dodge to give this accountability, and then everything is in the open, everybody appreciates the other, and we are able to move forward. The last thing I would say is that now government needs to come up with more creative ways of bringing the informal sector out of informality. We can come up with incentives to, bring them out of this informality.
Black market.
Yes, but also through the talking of systems, government systems, utility and all that, that kind of, the integration of systems. If we do that integration of systems, then it is also another way that we can know who is doing what where, and then compel them to come out of informal business into formality. Because you see, if you have just half of the informal sector into formality, then we'll be collecting much more revenue. Our tax to GDP will shoot, and definitely also our debt to GDP will reduce, because we will have no need of borrowing so much to do government programs. So the bottom line is sensitize people, account, reduce the informal sector, that gap, and then we shall be headed in the right direction.
Wow, thank you so much. Yes, Ronald, parting shots.
Thank you very much. You have really did a great job. You have exhausted everything. But since Noel has asked, I want to begin from where to say that borrowing, that we need to borrow. Yes, borrowing is the option to filling the fiscal deficit. But in the long run, it all comes back to tax, because this borrowed money is paid through taxpayers' money.
Wow.
So, much as we might borrow, in the long run, still, like I've said, it is tax that we charge to pay. So we have to improve our ability to generate revenue domestically. My parting shots may not be very different from what my colleague has said. We need to also, now government needs to improve on efficiency in the way it utilizes tax revenue. And this I look at both the technical efficiency and the allocative efficiency, that it has to look at those areas that really need to stimulate the economy, invest the resources there. Then after you've invested the resources, you go and do the sensitization that he's talking about. But now, as you do the sensitization, I'm sorry to say this, but now people have that kind of mindset about URA but they have come to get our money.
That's true.
How will you partner with non-state actors that if they see now, maybe if traders in Chikubo, Sita also telling them about the relevance of paying tax, one of their own, it will be very good. If the private sector also comes on board, the civil society is also brought on board to tell citizens that it's not painful to pay tax, as opposed to URA telling them, because URA, when you tell them, that's what they expect. But if Kasita tells people downtown, city traders, the relevance of paying taxes, getting it from them, one of their, actually their own, is the one telling them about the beauty.
It's much more effective.
It's much more effective. The information is going to be taken in wholeheartedly, as opposed to you.
Yes.
They might take it because you told them. Listening and hearing are different things. To you, they might hear, but they may not listen.
That's true.
Then, I am very sure that URA also has some leakages.
That's true.
And this must be addressed, because all these resources have to go to the Treasury, which is the consolidated fund. When you read through the Auditor General report, my friend, it is a misery.
It's worrying.
Even that some MDAs and whatever, they have some areas which have to be written off over time. So which is also not very good. Because someone asks, if government is failing to pay, who am I to pay? You know?
Yes.
So then they also need to, I think I've said this, that working with non-state actors, the private sector, and majorly you have to show these people that it is more costly to be in the informal sector than being formal. As I wind up, we talked of URSB having 44 branches across the country.
Yes, at least.
If you do this as a percentage of the number of local governments we have, this is like a drop in an ocean.
I hear you.
But again, these 44, you have just officers who wake up to go in the office in the morning and come out in the evening. Have they done community outreaches? Because it's very hard for people to live wherever they are. The opportunity cost of time is very high.
It's high.
That I leave my business to go and do what? Inquire from you, boss.
You, boss.
URSB.
Yes.
Has URSB done something to reach out to those people?
To reach out.
The information that you say that is being translated, what are the most effective mechanisms of disseminating it? Yes. I was even thinking, you know, it came to my mind when I saw this thing here, that what if you work with the private sector and say, put here just some tax information, and as you sell the bottle of water, someone sees some tax education here. I think it can also work.
Yes.
But now those are dynamics which can be worked out among other innovations. I thank you very much. My very final words is that people, when we pay tax, it is for our own good. And please, government, when we pay tax, use it for our own good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ronald. Well, you've heard from them. The taxpayers' appreciation season is here, and it's running right till December. URA will be rewarding the top taxpayers in every district and we'll be rewarding taxpayers, medium, large, small. All the taxpayers are recognized in this time. Thank you so much for paying your taxes. Let us develop Uganda together. You've heard it from Edward and Ronald that there is we have a low tax to GDP ratio, and yet our debt to GDP is also extremely high. The cost of informality on economic development is that still the debt or the loans that are borrowed by government are still paid by the taxpayers, and that is a cost to you and I. So let all the citizenry, let all our fellow countrymen arise, account for these taxes, hold our MDAs to account for what is collected and for how the resources are used to develop the different cities, towns, districts around our country. From us to you, it's a good afternoon. Thank you.
The Taxpayers Appreciation Season is here. We recognize, celebrate, and award Uganda's top taxpayers. Be part of the online Bombaya Business Summits and stand a chance to win smartphones, gift sets, hampers, and loads more. Visit our social media pages to find out more.
We appreciate you for paying your taxes. We're proud to be Ugandan. We celebrate you. Oh, we celebrate you. Taxpayers of Uganda. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Uganda together.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together.
The third edition of the Bombay Business Summit is here, starting at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. every Friday from the 15th of October to the 12th of November. Join us via Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube as we discuss topics like surviving and thriving through the pandemic, investing in real estate, trade and investment opportunities in Uganda, alternative dispute resolution, business formalization, and inclusive resource mobilization for Uganda's economic independence. Don't miss out.